Chapter 38, Ball, and Chapter 39, Sandwich. Chapter 38. And what about us? Geto didn't look at Gojo. I can tell that you're angry with me, but I love you. I've always loved you. I'll continue to love you. Gojo shot a sidelong glance at Geto. I'm angry because you chose power over me, and what kills me is I understand why. You're the strongest. I didn't want to stand in your way. I just didn't know you would leave me behind so fast. That hurt. Tears stung Geto's eyes, but he didn't let himself cry. Suguru, you were the reason I wanted to be untouchable. I wanted to be strong enough to create a world where no one could ever take you from me. What is the point of being the strongest if I'm still going to lose you? Fuck! Gojo clenched his fists in frustration. Gojo stood up from the bed and walked towards the balcony, but stopped without turning back to Geto. If I made you feel abandoned, then I screwed up worse than any curse I've ever faced. He hung his head and spoke more to himself than Geto. What am I going to do if you never believe that you were more important than power? A weighty silence hung over them. He heard Geto shuffle across the room and he turned around. I don't have the strength to do this right now, Satoru, Geto said quietly. He still had Gojo's sweatshirt on, and he pulled the hood over his head and climbed onto the spare bed. He curled into a ball like he did at the hospital. Chapter 39, Sandwich. Hours had passed, and Gojo wasn't sure if Geto had fallen asleep, but he hadn't moved at all. Gojo had spent the time sitting at his desk, trying to look through his textbooks, but he kept staring at the words instead of actually reading them. He heard a muted knock at the door and knew what it was. He waited a minute or two before he released his barrier and reached out for the large paper bag left in the hallway. Dinner. Geto stirred in his bed and sat up to see what was going on. He hadn't been asleep after all. Gojo unpacked their food from the bag, 2 sandwiches for each of them, apples, chips, cookies, juice, packets of crackers. Geto stood beside him and surveyed the food. He started to reach for the crackers, but picked up the sandwiches and an apple instead. He headed towards the patio door for the balcony. Am I allowed out here? Geto wasn't trying to sound snarky, but there was an edge to his voice. Gojo didn't answer, but he gathered some food in his arms and went to the balcony to cast another veil. They sat on folding chairs with their food piled on a tray table. The evening air was chilly, and the fall scenery was vibrant, even through the opaque shale of the veil. Geto unwrapped the first sandwich and hesitated. Gojo took a bite of his. He was tired of eating turkey sandwiches. Next time, he'd have the cafeteria make them something different. Gojo watched Geto out of the corner of his eye. Geto took a small bite, chewed it slowly, then swallowed. He started to devour the rest of his sandwich in big bites and started on the second one before Gojo got another bite in. Gojo listened as Geto started in on the apple, his teeth biting into the firm flesh of the fruit. He crossed his fingers and hoped Geto wouldn't get a stomachache later. They sat in silence, watching the sun go down. Gojo hated the tension between them. Do you realize, Geto began to say. Gojo turned to look at him. That now I can't even take a piss with having you by my side? Geto asked. He said this deadpan at first, but then he broke out into a grin. Gojo's cheeks flushed at this unexpected smile. I'm not gonna make you live like this. I'll fix it. The grin disappeared from Geto's face. Yeah, fix it, he whispered, and Gojo knew he was talking about more than just their bathroom situation. Gojo texted Yaga a request to move into one of the dorm supervisor's rooms. They were bigger and had their own toilet and shower. He kicked himself for not asking for it before. He read Yaga's reply, then put his phone down. Since you brought it up, we may as well go, Gojo said. Gojo carried his shower caddy and walked towards the shared facilities at the end of the hall, with Geto following slowly, shuffling in an extra pair of Gojo's flip-flops. After relieving themselves, They went to the showers. Geto was self-conscious and kept his back to Gojo as much as he could. Gojo shampooed his hair and rinsed the bubbles away while watching Geto through the suds and steam. Geto was still alarmingly skinny compared to his physique before. Geto leaned against the tile wall, his hands on his stomach. Gojo, out of instinct, reached out for him, but Geto put a hand out to stop him. Gojo looked down at his own naked body and backed away. "It's just the food. I think I ate too fast," Geto explained. They finished showering and stopped at Geto's room so he could grab some of his things. "Yaga is moving us into a bigger room with a full bath. We won't have to sneak around in our bathrobes, and I won't have to watch you piss," Gojo joked weakly. Geto pushed the door open and turned on his desk light, which barely illuminated the room. Gojo shut the door and cast another barrier veil. He watched as his friend surveyed his barely furnished room. "My room looks like I wasn't planning on being here long," Geto remarked. He stuffed some clothes into a backpack and grabbed his toothbrush. Gojo balanced a comforter in his arms, and they went back to his place.